Greetings and blessings. In a hectic world, hungry for His peace and truth, we connect again, conjoined on the winter's journey and mindful of rebirth and new beginnings in the bold promise of God's plan. Let us link together in common bolster of community prayer and thanksgiving as we join. Thank you, God, for all your gifts and help us find peace in these difficult times. May our country continue to heal and knit back together. My parents' employment situation is not good. Please help them and those with similar circumstance. For the improved health of my aunt and my uncle. Help me be brave as I face some health challenges. In thanksgiving for the birth of a healthy new niece. For my friends who had a house fire, may their lives get back to normal soon. For healing in my family and peace in the lives of my friends. Please help me to have more confidence and motivation in my life. Help me to move past the hurt of a relationship that just didn't work out. Help me not feel so sad, God, and to remember that you love me. Everlasting, ever-loving Father, hear these prayers and those hidden in our hearts. Be undeniably present with us as we journey, soul search, and celebrate. May the winter chill be banished by the awareness of your manifested promises, and our hunger for springtime affirm us in a longing for your deep, abiding care. We ask this in your name. Amen. Greetings, welcome. I am actually being video recorded in the Martin Meditation Chapel on the campus of Ottawa University in Ottawa, Kansas. And the magic of how our world is now, when you see this broadcast, I will actually be going from cold Kansas to sunny Arizona, and this chapel will be vacant, except for the cold air that is still here. I will be wearing nice, loose clothing, enjoying the sun. Last week, we talked about what it was like to be able to know that you could get on a plane and magically go where you are. This week in Scripture, one of the things that we'll hear is sort of, if you could have any wish, what would it be? Well, what's the one thing you ask of the Lord? For most Christians within that thought, for those that proclaim to be Christians, is to live in the house of the Lord forever, to go to heaven, to do earth, learn from earth, figure out what we're supposed to learn both in knowledge and reaction, not necessarily to earn heaven, not even necessarily to prove to God that we are worthy, to be able to get it, to understand, as Pilate says to Jesus, what does truth mean? The question that I had this week, I've actually been putting it off for a while. The thing that someone wrote me was, why won't people see the truth? Well, you guys know I'm not terribly good at dealing with politics. And so initially I thought, okay, that's a political ramification of the reality of COVID or about the election or about, and as always, after I think, step back and pray on some of these, they mean much more than my quick reactions would say they do. If ever I needed this reflection, I've had some stuff happen at my mom's house that has really made me understand people and truth. I'll explain that to you after Scripture, but it's interesting because what I've realized is people choose what is true, and many times assemble those things not based on fact. Guys, we're talking about, in general, as Christians, a walk of faith. So of course you're going to have faith. How do we balance that with fact? How do we make sure that if the proof says the earth is round, that we don't fight it? Some of the things on the news, if someone says that a mass shooting didn't happen or was all made up, that we see the grief in a parent's eyes, hopefully because we've tried to help them. If someone feels that their own rights for texting and driving or smoking in public or not wearing a mask is so important that they don't see the impact it has on others. How do we make sure that we are not ignorant? And once we have learned, we do not become apathetic. That's the focus of our chapel today. Listen to Scripture. We will ponder together because it seems like this is probably, at least in my own life and maybe in yours, a time that we have some interesting questions to ask about what truth means. Glad you are joining us. I assure you that I'm probably somewhere warm, and I hope for you, wherever you may be, you are too. Thanks again.
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock.
In this place, a new light is streaming. Now is the darkness vanished away. See, in this space, our fears and our dreamings brought here to you in the light of this day. Gather us in the lost and forsaken. Gather us in the blind and the lame. Call to us now and we shall awaken. We shall arise at the sound of our name. We are the young, our lives are a mystery. We are the old who yearn for your face. We have been sung throughout all of history, called to be light to the whole human race. Gather us in the rich and the haughty. Gather us in the proud and the strong. Give us a heart so meek and so lowly. Give us the courage to enter the song. Here we will take the wine and the water. Here we will take the bread of new birth. Here you shall call your sons and your daughters. All us anew to be salt for the earth. Give us to drink the wine of compassion. Give us to eat the bread that is you. Nourish us well and teach us to fashion lives that are holy and hearts that are true. Not in the dark of buildings confining, not in some heaven light years away. Here in this place the new light is shining. Now is the kingdom and now is the day. Gather us in and hold us forever. Gather us in and make us your own. Gather us in, all peoples together. Fire of the love beyond flesh and our bone.
Now Thomas, one of the 12, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and place my finger into the mark of the nails, and place my hand into his side, I will never believe."
So in Psalm 27, you heard about, what do I ask from the Lord? What's my number one wish if the genie in the bottle gave me one? To dwell in the house of the Lord for all my days to come. We heard about Thomas and his need for proof. This is sort of a personal chapel to me because one of the subjects of this chapel is my mom. Now, for those of you that were here on the Ottawa campus, when we used to do these chapel broadcasts live, Mom was the cookie lady. She was the person that brought the cookies and would sit out after chapel and give them to you. Or sometimes make sure you didn't take a million of them. For our international students, my mom's house, she's a delightful old Victorian painted lady house in a town called Overbrook, was where we would host the tea parties, up on that big third floor where the great room was an easy place to entertain. My mother has always been a woman of deep faith, has always been focused, eye for the prize, in knowing that the goal is to spend eternity with God. And for the most part, my dad used to always call her Pollyanna. She's always very positive, even when the life or circumstances she's in says she'll be long-suffering. As it sits, she's just a happy person, has always counted her blessings and looks to commune with God in heaven with her friends. Simple and nice. So, in Overbrook, this house was the actual first mayor of Overbrook. It's a neat old house. We had a neighbor that was Mom and Dad's good friends forever. They've since gone to heaven. And that building was torn down, and they have built one of those stores, whose names I won't say, but that pops up in a lot of small towns. We thought, well, Mom's getting older, and at this point, maybe having a store she could go hang out in would be cool. She can chat, they have everything. Truly, you just go next door, you can get a gallon of milk, go next door. What a great thing. In some ways, that's true. The cost of building it has been rough. So they had to tear down the building. Now, the property is interesting because, so what it boils down to is this was like the first house forever, had the first bathtub in that area. My friends, well, my mom and dad's friends who are now deceased, their neighbors, talked about as young girls how these two sisters had come and taken their first bath because the people, literally, I think by wagon, had this huge cast iron tub when they built the house. It was designed, the house itself, by the same guy that did our courthouse here in Ottawa. So it's this really sweet house with all sorts of hardwood and parquet floors and this huge tub. Literally, people would come and take a bath in the tub because it was indoor plumbing. At that time, the tub was actually powered by a windmill. There's a book called Cutler's Kansas. It's about history, and in that we learned that Jesse James hid out in our barn, which is great for a high school kid to learn. I thought it was cool. That's where I had my A for. And next door to it, with this huge grove of cedar trees. The house, when we first bought there, was Cedar Grove Farm. Back then, it was actually a rural route. The city had not grown up around it. It was a magical place to be. And that building, which is now torn down, had all these big things where they had boats. And as a kid, it was a fun place to hang out and hide from your parents when you didn't want to deal with them. Well, part of the problem, of course, then with Dollar Generals is that, and a lot of those other stores, is that they become a representation of progress. So you get what you want, but you have to leave out. You have to sacrifice some of the old to go with the new. Used to be, in Overbrook and other towns, Casey's was a store, and they would come to a place where there was no way that you could have, well, we call it food insecurity, no place to buy food, and there would be. But many times when you're locating in a space, something else used to be there. Some of these towns used to have stores. I mean, literal grocery stores, small. Most of them don't. The work we do with some of our churches with the denomination in western Kansas, there's no store, there's not even a Casey's or a Dollar General, those ones that come in. What there is a cemetery and a church. So, towns die if something doesn't keep them alive. How much then are you willing to sacrifice? That's the question. With us, what we've realized is as this store next door was torn down, well, was built on what was torn down, there was a lot of issues that we didn't expect. For example, because we always had shared plumbing, the water and the gas and the sewer were all connected, basically one pipe, sharing, like Body Bart's Christ. Well, you need for a store some industrial stuff. So our little pipes that were put in were too small. So they had to dig everything up and with that put in new pipes, which means that then those pipes are too big for your house, which means that you have to. So a lot of stuff that Mom had to go through, envisioning progress, wanting sort of hope for the community, because we'd have this cool sort of store feature, also meant that she had to sacrifice some things. Probably the hardest was that in some of this doing, there was some disagreement on the property line, and they had to cut down Dad's fruit orchard. At this point, in fact, right before they started the project, about a month, my dad had died. So there are apple trees, there are pear trees, there are pawpaw trees. Pawpaw trees are weird. My dad wanted them because of a stupid song when he was a kid, and they're hard to get to grow. So Mom was grieving that. They cut down the cedars that made Cedar Grove Farm because they were concerned about the overhang over this new building. So you'd look out her bedroom window, which is right overlooking this place, and at one point there was nothing. Literally, she said, I think I can hear the trees screaming as they cut them down. Bulldozed them down, flat plain, nothing. Then it was determined we needed to have a new fence, so they tore down our fence. Now, the house in itself has wrought iron fencing on the front, had some decorative fence on the side. They wanted something more industrial because, again, it's a business. So they whacked down the fence, and they put this retaining wall of cement blocks and a chain link fence on top of that. So now, outside her window, there's this weird sort of prison-like fence. But still, on the other side, that is a store that has all the goodies you would get. So in the realm of cost, value, and worth, that's what matters. As it sat then, probably the biggest thing that we discovered after was what they'd done is they dug up her sewer line. So there was a real weird period of time then where she started having all these sewer problems. So, again, the house is on a big lot. For those of you that know it, you know. They had to dig up all the sewer line up to her house and down to the spot where it connects into the city sewer. And we replaced it all, knowing that that would fix it, because we thought, well, maybe things are just old and we need to fix it. As it said, that did not fix it. And so Mom was having real problems with her sewer. We didn't know what else to do. You really count on sewer. There's not only metaphorically, but other things, the ability to get crap out of your life is incredibly important. And you take it for granted until it does not work. And then one is miserable. The last time that Mom had plumbers come in to redo that pipe, again, we had to replace that, what they told her is, it's no longer safe for you to flush toilet paper. You need to fish it out. I, at this point, was horrified. You think about how that goes into our life now, in a world that's sort of swimming with refuse, in a world where you really want to be clean, where you're worried about COVID and everything seems contaminated. What if you can't get it out of your world? What if it just stays there? What's it like for those of us that are so used to it to not be able to flush it out of our lives? What's it like to have to literally go through it and put it in trash and then get it out of our house? Some of that is, I think, exactly what we're living with today. Politics and COVID and things that just don't flush. They're there. Some of it probably is our disconnection from God, like plumbing that's been capped off from a new neighbor. You don't know why it's not working. You flush and you flush and you flush and you flush. And worse yet, it might back up. I want this to go away. Sometimes you have to work to find out what the blockage is and the problems. So, back to Mom. That's what we did. Long story short, what we realized is, for whatever reason, when they built this new building, they, accidentally plowed up the sewage pipe that goes from Mom's property over to the city street. They either crushed it or... So her sewage went just through this weird cement block retaining wall and into nothing. So all this cleaning and plumbing and redoing and didn't matter, because although she was getting it out of her system, it was not going away. I think that that is the very nature, again, of where we are now. Now, here's the interesting piece. This ended up being a much bigger problem. In some ways, I would ask for your prayers, because it's really hard when the problem with your plumbing is on your neighbor's property. Realize that neighbors were Mom's good friends, but now it's just a big company. And that's how these things work. Big companies come in, start stores. But what if they don't fix it? What if you can see what you need and communicate what you need, and people just sort of go, so? What if the office is far enough away that they really don't know what you're talking about anyway? They can't understand that the house used to share plumbing and is 130 years old, so they just don't know. Well, then you know what you need, you know what you want, you know this needs to go, and you're absolutely helpless because you're dependent on others. And that in itself is the very message, I think, as humans, that's the hardest for us, especially right now. Even others we don't like or don't know, we want them to be our old neighbors and our friends. But we're still dependent on their help and support, and sometimes their relinquishment of control, to fix in our lives what we need to do. Now, I think Mom's plumbing stuff will work out. It's not been easy. It really hasn't. But at the end of the day, it's the very metaphor that makes sense when I talk about why won't people see the truth. Trying to communicate with Mom's new neighbors on this has been rough. We have lots of pictures. The city of Overbrook is wonderful. If you ever know anyone in Overbrook, Kansas, they're amazing people. They actually put up some money to help with a project because Mom's going to have to put in a whole new pipe, and we're going to hope our neighbors allow some of that to be done. Mom had some of that line insurance that you get for sewers in places like Kansas. So if you pay in your insurance, and I would highly advocate it, it means that they will pay for a big chunk of it if you ever have a failure. And even though this wasn't on her property, they agreed, because she'd paid in and because she had that assurance to be taken care of, to pay their maximum towards this plumbing project for Mom. So there's been wonderful people engaged. But in dealing with Mom's new neighbor, this store, they really have a hard time, even after you send them pictures, believing that it's true. From their perspective, I suppose, why would anyone share sewer pipes in this day and age? Well, they didn't. They did in the late 1800s. Why would we want you to come on our property and do anything? Well, because you took out the pipe that... And the hard thing then for Mom, even as we're resolving this, is that she felt responsible. It's really easy when the world is dark sometimes to take on other people's crap and to make us feel dirty. Mom's metaphor is exactly then how I could view this, not in the frame of politics or COVID, certainly not Democrat or Republican, or what is it like when you know the truth, you have your eye on the prize, you realize that you have to conjoin with others, and the others that you have to conjoin with, I guess, don't see the truth for what it is. As Pilate would say, what does truth mean? That brings us to probably the crux of this message. Where is that line where people's beliefs are just their own, on wearing masks, on texting and driving? Where is that a line where it's crossed, where their failure to do that leaves you covered in crap and impossibly situated to fix a problem? How much of that is power and control then? What is that difference in saying that I'm with someone who believes that the earth is flat, or many of the other new things that come out that I think would confound my beliefs? And where does that turn into something where, because they control some aspect of being a part of the body of Christ, they require that I either acknowledge something that's not true to get what I need, or they just throw poo at me? And do I tolerate that? The answer is no. That means that we must reframe where we are in the realm of lightning rods. That means that we can't just blurt out things because we're not happy, that we actually have to look at cost, value, and worth and see the big things that matter. I don't have to like it that you don't agree with me, unless that agreement, brokering that compromise, somehow impacts my quality of life or my health. And then I do have a right to say, wait. Now, certainly in this country we have the law of God, we have the law of the courts, but long before you go down those paths, you have to figure out when it's worth knocking on that door again and saying, hey, it's still here, still problems. And you have to figure out in your own heart how much it's worth. How much is an eternity with God worth? How much do we sacrifice for God? How much do we sacrifice for our neighbor? Can we figure out when those things are truly necessary? And do we know when to let go and let God? So your charge for this week, my charge has been, in dealing with Mom's stuff and dealing with life, is to really look at those things. Where is our issue of influence and concern? What things can I really change? If I decide to go from concern, things that I'm just worry about, to influence where I want to change it, and this is a new charge, what roadblocks or obstacles are really there? And are they from the inside or are they from the outside? If they're from the inside or the outside, can God come in and make it right? If you're fighting with your neighbors like neighbors can do, Is it an issue of the prodigal son and his brother where somehow God can blend you back together to make you whole as family in community and in his earnest kingdom? If not, what do you do? Because you cannot go back to your issue if you're truly dealing with influence of concern. You can't go to say, gosh, I would only do it if they would, because then that turns into a weird blame game. Your charge then is to find actions to make the world a better place. And if there are obstacles to those actions, to figure out how to resolve them. Truly. Because the alternative, friends, is that you will be stuck and more poo will cover you up. That's the kind of world we live in. You must figure out what you are going to do about it. And then, as the last part of the charge, who's going to help you? Because I think most of the time as a chaplain, what I've always been thrilled with is when the floods come, when the tornadoes come, when the crisis comes, most always we step up and make things better as a community. It calls to us. It's the way God's voice comes through us. Who are the people you will have in your life to help you make things right and whole? When you find that, gosh, maybe next charge, maybe not even the need for that, then change the world. Make a dark time better. Make sure that people aren't bullied or hurt. Make sure that people are loved and they know it. Make sure that no one is thirsty or hungry or cold. Jesus gave us a whole litany of things to do. Now that you've riddled through that other stuff, you can just do. And you've got friends to do it with. For friendship and the love of God. And no matter how dark the world is and how full of poo it is, you will find that you are clean, warm, and happy in the circle of those people. You can make it better. I'll be trying to do the same. I'll keep you updated on Monk Plumbing. Next time you guys are back in Overbrook, maybe we'll have a party at our house. Let's close in prayer then. God, thank you so much for the gift of friends and fellow travelers on this journey. Even though it's dark, it is lighter when we are together. Somehow holding hands makes our eyes work better. Help us find ways together then, as community, to pick apart the problems that we see confronting ourselves, our friends, even strangers. To truly work together as your hands and feet, to rebuild a world that right now is hurting, fractured, divisive, competitive, and not in the good ways. We know that we get our one wish, and we can be assured an eternity with you. But help us not stay in a nest of poo in the meantime. Help us to build a verdant place for God, God's kingdom on earth, just as you are making a place for us in heaven, so that we know what it's like when we finally get to heaven, to live clean, to live in love, to live in joy, and to live fiercely in a way where dark and evil should not be allowed into our space, so that we can grab onto you with full appreciation and be clean, worthy, and knowledgeable enough to earn that, even though we know you just gift it to us. Help us to continue to progress in these dark times in a way where we feel growth, not overwhelmed. And more importantly, God, help us to make sure that we, as your emissaries, ensure that no one else feels that way. Let us not leave anyone feeling alone or defeated. Let us not leave anyone hungry or thirsty or naked. We know that's your charge. As we have healed and heal ourselves, let us make sure that the table is filled with the healing, the healed, that only God can afford. And let us do it in tangible ways that give the Thomases of the world the very proof of your existence, both in heaven and in us, that is required to nurture their soul. Thanks for a cool family, God. It's nice to have them extended, even those we've never seen, knowing that what you're doing, your purpose. Help all of us make sure that we are the strongest link and have the best jokes at the party as we rush to do your will in the flurry of dark times and know that you have us in your palm. We ask this in your name. Amen.
time that will surely be, when the earth shall be filled with the glory of God as the waters cover the sea. Hallelujah. All we do is nothing worth unless God blesses the deed. Vainly we hope for the harvest time, till God gives life to the seed. Yet nearer and nearer draws the time that